Hey guys, Tom itself here. In my thanks for 10k subscribers video, I said I'd do a Q&A, so here are the answers to some of the questions that were left on that video. I expect I'm going to butcher some names, so I apologize in advance. In the background, I have some Battlefield 4 TDM using the PP2000. But to the questions. Salo Augusto Martino asks, what is your opinion of the nade spam in Battlefield 4? Do you think there's a problem, or are you okay with it? Nade spam can be annoying in any game, but it's not something I really associate with Battlefield 4. But keep in mind, I play on the 360 where there are only 24 players in a server at any given time. I play mostly Rush, but occasionally some TDM, some Domination, a little Conquest, and every now and then the odd Obliteration. And outside of situations where there are only a few very small choke points with each team concentrated on either side, I don't see a whole lot of nade spam. When I do run into that kind of situation, it's a fairly simple matter to say, okay, not going that way, find a flanking route, and get around some other way. Because there aren't as many people on the map, that's a little bit easier to do. Now, I wouldn't mind if DICE toned down the screen shake. It can get pretty obnoxious, and I think it really highlights and makes worse some of the screen tearing issues. It can make it really hard to tell what's going on, in fact completely take you out of the game for several tenths of a second, and I'm not sure if that's the intention DICE had, but that is the effect that I get with all of this low frame rate and screen tearing. But on the other hand, nade spam, I just don't see a whole lot of it in Battlefield 4. Maybe, again, that's because I'm on 360, lower player counts, maybe that's the game modes I'm playing. If I played more Obliteration, maybe I'd have a different opinion of it. I'm sure if I played 64-man Locker or Op Metro, I would have a strong opinion about this, but as it stands, DICE can change stuff if it's for the better, sure, why not? It just doesn't really seem to affect me a whole lot right now. Eduardo Aceves asks, do you think Titanfall is setting a bad precedent for future games? It's full price, but it does not have a campaign, game mode variety, customization options, nothing like a zombies extinction type thing, not private matches, etc. Companies will no longer see the need to work on all these things if Titanfall sells a ton with just the bare bones multiplayer. Don't get me wrong, the beta was fun, but I think it's a bad omen. Titanfall is certainly very bare bones. It's quite the contrast compared to a lot of AAA games these days that are very bloated. All you have to do is look at Call of Duty or Battlefield. From a marketing perspective, I expect it's easier to sell an established franchise when you've got something for everyone. But when you've got a new game, a new IP, the new kid on the block, you need to find something and do it really well. Otherwise, people might just go back to the other game. And given the small team that Respawn had to make Titanfall, I'm pretty sure it was less than 100 people, I'm glad they focused on doing one thing really well, making it stand out, making it a lot of fun, rather than just trying to cram in as much as they could and making it all kind of mediocre. They clearly try to get the most value out of their time. In other words, if players aren't going to spend a lot of time with some features, don't spend a lot of time working on it. And if you're not going to do it well, don't bother. Respawn clearly isn't trying to sell Titanfall as anything other than a multiplayer game, but a lot of other games that I play for the multiplayer, or the recent Call of Duties or Battlefields, if I'd bought those to play the single player, I would be sorely disappointed. A few things that can actually be really nice about having single player or co-op in a multiplayer focused game are the opportunity for some slightly different experiences, some different takes on the same theme. If you're otherwise reusing a lot of assets between multiplayer and those modes, it's possible to get a lot more value out of a game without a whole lot more work. Single player also offers the opportunity to get better with a game without the pressures of online multiplayer. And given the difficulty in learning how to play Titanfall, I can certainly see where a fun single-player experience could be useful to getting players into the game and having fun. But if you look at Battlefield 4, it does a pretty bad job of introducing a lot of core Battlefield concepts to new players through the campaign. The biggest thing DICE added between 3 and 4 was the spotting mechanic, marking enemies so your squad mates will try and shoot them, but you're actually discouraged from using that because you get fewer points when your squad mates get the kills. There's nothing about the comma rows, being a squad leader, commander mode, the different kits. Okay, the gadgets are in there, but usually it's just take out vehicles like you would if you were an engineer. But the one part where they actually tell you you need to go take out this tank, the driver is on this predictable path, there are no infantry around, it's one tank, and all you have to do is walk up from the side where he's not looking directly at you, and you can plant C4 on the tank and blow it up. Yeah, show me a situation in multiplayer where you're reliably going to find a tank driver doing that. It's a joke. Battlefield 3 and 4 don't do anything to teach players the air game at all. If your profile isn't getting corrupted, you'll have 4 to 5 hours of a pretty mediocre campaign. They clearly spent a lot of work on it though, and yet a lot of the stuff that's in the campaign isn't reused in multiplayer, and so I think that's to the detriment of both aspects of the game. What I do think Call of Duty and Battlefield have set a bad precedent in is the lack of good matchmaking. Bungie set the bar very high. I was very happy with it with Halo 2 and 3 on console, but Call of Duty's success has made matchmaking much less of an important aspect of games, and I really wish it would come back. Titanfall seems to have a very similar system to what we've had in Call of Duty since COD 4, and I find it lacking. A while back, I did a 3-part series on TrueSkill, the matchmaking system Bungie used in Halo 2 and 3, and while implementing it into Call of Duty or Titanfall wouldn't suddenly make everything great and okay, it would definitely have issues, and it's not even possible to really do that in Battlefield. It wouldn't make sense at all. Still, the fact that we're not trying to do something like that to improve things at all is somewhat disappointing. Instead, Call of Duty and Titanfall and even Battlefield to some extent have gone to this progression system where it doesn't matter if you did poorly, you still earned experience. But I think we can all say that we've been stomped in a video game and it wasn't really fun, especially if it kept happening. And that if the matchmaking sets up games like that over and over again, the game really isn't living up to its potential. I do think it a little odd that attrition is really the one featured game mode in Titanfall. It would be kind of nice if, well, like COD has Team Deathmatch, Domination, Search and Destroy, or at least when I think of it, those are the 3 game modes I think really stand out in my mind as being Call of Duty. They all play slightly differently, but still rely on the same core mechanics that define Call of Duty. Titanfall has Hardpoint, which is just domination. It's okay, but it doesn't strike me as really a Titanfall game mode. Maybe I'm speaking too soon here. I've only played Attrition and Hardpoint, but Last Titan Standing, Pilot Hunter, and Capture the Flag, while they're probably solid game modes, don't strike me as anything particularly stand out about Titanfall. Who knows, Capture the Flag with the movement might be a lot of fun. That was certainly Tribe's big thing, and there is a little bit of a Tribes vibe in Titanfall. If it's just one game, it's obviously easy to say, hey, that doesn't look like it's worth it to me for $60, I'm going to wait till it comes down in price. If you're looking for single-player experiences, I'm sure they're going to be out there, and given how well they sell, I'm sure we'll keep seeing these big set-piece linear campaigns keep coming out. They'll probably just keep getting shorter until people stop buying them. A Hero Almost asks, your favorite COD, weapon, maps ever? And we'll be doing the live stream with Culprit, Puppy, and Mass Nerder again. As for the COD, that's easy. It's COD 4, the AK-47, gold, no attachments. Maps, I liked a lot of maps in COD 4, but Overgrown, Block, probably 2 of my favorites. I keep expecting that at some point we will try to do the Nerd Talk podcast reunion again, but Mass Nerder is pretty busy, and so him making time for that is a little bit tricky. I don't think he even has Battlefield 4 yet. If he does, he's on PC with Culprit, Puppy is on Xbox One, and I'm on 360, so playing together, not really an option, unfortunately. Potato Masher asks, each day, how long do you spend making videos? How long do I spend making videos? That's a tough question. I try not to keep track. It is a hobby, I do it for fun, and so I tend to lose track of time. But there are a few things you have to decide what are you going to include in that time as making videos. Is playing games at any time for me, which potentially could turn into a video because I'm almost always recording, is that time spent? Usually not, I'd do that anyway for fun too. But if I'm after something pretty specific, it can turn into a lot of work and many hours can disappear getting just a few seconds of clips. It can turn ridiculous really fast. So one thing that I've gotten in the habit of doing is reviewing my footage for pretty much anything that I think might be useful in a future video. Now, I'd review a lot of my footage anyway just to see what was going on. It's kind of the point of recording in the first place, but I wouldn't do it to the same level of detail that I do for looking for clips, and I certainly wouldn't spend the time cutting out the clips and rendering those into smaller files that I can actually keep. How long that takes varies a lot, but in general, 10 to 15 minutes per hour of recorded gameplay. but those clips are rarely intended for a specific video when I cut them, and so it's hard to figure out which video cost me how much time. For example, the battle pickup weapons that I used in the previous burn cards and battle pickup video, mostly on Titanfall, but the clips I got from that for Battlefield, I'd cut those out weeks or months ago and thinking, yeah, I'm going to want that for something, and sure enough, a while later I have it, and so that's kind of turned into one of my strengths, and probably one of the things you guys like about the channel is that I usually have relevant clips around, and well, that's because I go back and review the clips. But when it comes to actually sitting down and making a video, when I've already got most of the clips or gameplay and a rough outline, I'd expect that it takes probably half an hour to an hour of work for every final minute of video that I get. That's filling in my outline, scripting if I have to, especially for technical videos where I just want to get through it very quickly and concisely. Scripting is actually really helpful. Then reviewing the clips, editing, and then finally commenting. And yeah, so a normal video, half an hour to an hour of additional work for every minute of final video. Something like the Team Juggernaut videos, or where I've got lots of points of view, it's pretty easy to send that over 2 hours for every final minute of video. That's just a rough guess, as again I said I try not to keep track of that, but that's about where I'd put it. Of course, there is the odd video like this Q&A response one, where I'm not really worried about what I have in the background. I had some footage I knew would be okay, so go ahead and use that. Just review the questions, cut out the little pictures, outline what I want to say, and then go ahead and do the commentary. Not even close to what a lot of the other ones are, but that's okay. Isaac the Fallen Apple asks, what do you do besides YouTube? Are you a mathematician or physicist? No, I am a grad student in chemical engineering. The follow-up question is usually, what exactly is chemical engineering? In general, where manufacturing engineering is dealing with discrete things, chemical engineering deals with stuff, where you don't have a discrete unit. So chemicals, obviously, but you also see food, pharmaceuticals, and so on. There's probably a bit less focus on chemistry and chemical engineering than most people originally envision. That's not to say that reactor design isn't a thing, but there's also thermodynamics, transport phenomena, fluid dynamics, heat transfer, mass transfer, all that good stuff, as well as process control and safety. But to name a few of these central topics, I'll direct you to Wikipedia if you'd like more information on that. XZBonoZX asks, will there be any more Kerbal Space Program videos? I think that's fairly likely, though I do have to say I really like Scott Manley's Kerbal Space videos, and I am fairly intimidated by that, coming up with my own stuff that is, well, not comparable, but anywhere close. It's quite a challenge, and I'm trying to come up with something that I can do that would work out fairly well, though I get the impression that the .23 release with the asteroid redirect missions possibilities is not too far away, and so that would be something fun to do. I've been sciencing in .23. I had a whole bunch of mods in .22 that I eventually just said, you know what, I'm not going to deal with reinstalling all of this and making sure it works, and just started over a new career mode, and we might go ahead and pick up something with that. We'll see. Spencer the Whip asks, will you ever do a Play with Subs Battlefield 4 server when possible? Now, I had been thinking about this, and I was really concerned with how having Battlefield 4 split across 5 different platforms would make the Play with Subs thing appealing, just because there's going to be an even smaller fraction of my subs that are actually able to join in and have fun with it. But when it comes to Play with Subs, it can be hard or next to impossible to get everybody in who wants to play. No matter how many platforms you play on, no matter how long you spend playing, at what crazy hours or what servers, it's just the practicality of it, especially as the audience gets larger and larger. Still, if there was a server that I wanted to promote, I definitely think Play with Subs at some point for a couple hours, live stream that, have a good time, is certainly a possibility. That, of course, relies on DICE finally getting the console rental servers up and working. I do remember having a fairly good time with the server that Mass Nerder rented. Wow, that's a tongue twister right there. Back in Battlefield 3, it was a lot of fun to have a server with a map rotation that I liked, and with a lot of people who would really PTFO. The Fenego799 asks, that quote you have on your channel page, men talk of killing time while time silently kills them, where did you get that quote from? Well, as it turns out, I had to go back and do a little searching on my hard drive, do a little Googling, in order to get a proper answer to this question. One of my awesome subscribers made a channel background for me at one point, back in early 2012, I guess it'd be about 2 years ago at this point. Predictable Dan's made it for me, and he put this quote on it, and I was like, okay, sure, why not, looks great. And there's the channel background with a quote. You can remember what YouTube looked like back when that was what a channel background was like? Yeah. And since then, everyone who's made me a channel background or banner has reused that quote without me ever asking. It's been kind of amusing. But if I type the quote into Google, it comes up with an attribution for Dion. You know, I'm not even going to try that name right now. Anyway, that's where that came from. And Kieran Kearney asks, what do you think is the best video you have made? That's a tough question. I don't know if I'd say best video, but two really stick out in my mind, as I thought, you know, I did something right there. Even if there were lots of issues, something really went right, and that would be, first, the Team Juggernaut video on Mission. There is some audio syncing with the music that just worked out wonderfully, and I don't know, it's a lot of fun to watch. The other would be a Black Ops 1 video on flanking and rushing, and I was the analysis there. I had this gameplay that I did really well in, and I was like, alright, I need to understand why this went so well. It took me quite a while watching the gameplay, watching in theater mode, going over it again, thinking about it to finally come up with, okay, this is what was going on, this is why it was working, and here I'm going to generalize it enough so that I can try to apply it to other maps, other situations, and maybe even other games. I was really happy with how that came out, and I felt like making that video helped make me a better player. Well, that is all the questions I had picked out for this. Seemed to go fairly well on the recording end, but let me know how it sounds. I'm somewhat worried it's me just rambling on, kind of nonsensically, for 15 minutes at this point. But if you like it, maybe we can do this again in a couple months. I think it might have gone okay. But I'll have to plan on either a shorter video, or more questions, or longer answers, or some combination of those. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you very much for watching. This is my first attempt at this kind of thing, so I hope it went okay. I am going to go ahead and let the last of the gameplay run out, and enjoy. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.
Вражеский солдат! Вижу вражеского солдата! Вижу вражеского снайпера! Обнаружен вражеский снайпер! Обнаружен вражеский снайпер!
to go. Keep taking them out. Only one more to go. Come on, let's do this.